Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Janet. I am going to go over some more information with you all. I know I've shared a lot of information in our announcement section, but I want to give an overview because this is a group work course here at SNHU, and I want to make sure that you guys understand what we're going through. So first, I want to go in your class course room information. As far as group work goes, I have mentioned out throughout the term that this is putting you in a real world scenario where oftentimes you'll be working in your office. And then it doesn't matter if you're actually in the actual office building or working out of a home office. Actually, working out of a home office is going to mean that you're going to be using group work even more so. This gives you the opportunity to understand and learn how to connect with other members of your team, regardless of where they're located. Time zones are going to probably be different. Everybody's work schedule is going to be different. You're not going to be able to just get up from your desk and walk over or just send an email, because a lot of times, especially in marketing, we need to have meetings to go over what our plan of attack is, and it is basically like a plan of attack for our advertising and marketing campaigns. So when you consider the group work, each week we have a group discussion. And just to backtrack a bit, yes, I understand that everyone has a life. We all do. We all work possibly more than one job. Some of us work 3 jobs, maybe 5. Um, and yes, I am one of those. And doing your schoolwork, it can be hard, but online education is not easy. There's a lot of time management that's involved. And so my role here is to help emphasize what is required for your course materials and to help guide you through the course so that you can, complete, and pass. And so in this particular class, we typically will have our group discussion, which is like most all courses at the university. And then we also have our group discussions where you should be posting each week. And what I would recommend, instead of just posting, what are your thoughts for this week and waiting on your group teammates to respond, go ahead and post your input. Post what you would like to say when it comes to that particular topic. So if you're talking about broadcast ads, go ahead, or even like the scripts that we just were going over. When you're looking at that information, go ahead and post your input. This is my recommendation, or I'll take this part of the work, and that makes it easier on the group as a whole, because otherwise you'll find that if you wait for your teammates to come in, because of the different schedules, you're going to be scrambling and be, very stressed at the end of the week. And that's a way for you to, hopefully not, fall down that scenario. So I know that there are some groups that probably are not having full participation, or perhaps in some groups, maybe you lost a person or two. And if you're not seeing any responses or any input from your team members, go ahead and do these weekly topics for your final project on your own. I can give you information. I have responded to several in the class, letting you know, if you do still have a full group of 4, or maybe a couple teams. We have 3, and I believe there's only 1 team that has 2 students on the team. But regardless, each week, just go into your group discussion and take that topic and write what you're going to be saying, what you want to talk about. And as we go through these weekly discussions, you should be taking that information and copying and pasting it into your own Word document. So you're keeping a running tab of all the different segments and the different topics that we're going over. That way it follows in line with what the course rubric is showing. Your course rubric for the assignment for this final project is listed on every single module. It gives you an exact layout, like you have your main elements of the final product. So you're going to have a portfolio that's going to consist of your home page, which, as the rubric states, it includes your relevant background information about your group and the real or fictional product, service, company. And the information about your group can be, it can be short, but and it doesn't have to be like a full bio, but just, a little bit of an overview of your team. Again, you're trying to mimic a real world scenario on how you would approach this in the job market, as a marketer or as an advertiser. You will have your annotated bibliography page next, which we did in the very beginning of the term, if you recall. Then you have your situational analysis and audience research page. And on your rubric, there is an example that takes you to review pages 5, 11, and 13, and that there is a link. Then you have your strategic objectives page, and there's an example. It says see page 18, so you click that and just make sure that the format is correct. Then you have your your creative brief. There's an example listed on page 23. And then the next segment that you include in that running project paper are your key messages page. And then you'll see an example. So see page 19. Then we go to the tactics page. This is where you have thumbnail sketches of the ad concepts, your broadcast media scripts. And remember, your broadcast media script should be 3 scripts. A lot of the teams have decided to go with the television script, your radio script. You can do a billboard if you prefer as well. Or you should be doing an internet ad script. And for the internet script, just creating a banner ad is perfectly fine. Or if you prefer for your internet script, you can create some type of a social media post that you would post across your preferred platform of social media. I would recommend that when it comes to social media in the real world, you don't want to post the same exact message across all the platforms that you use. There are well over 200 different social media platforms out there in the market. And what happens is that if you go to Instagram, for example, and you want to go post, you want to do a post, maybe post a picture or something, because Instagram is very photo driven. A lot of times you'll have the opportunity to also cross post on Twitter, on Facebook, and Tumblr if the Tumblr link works. A lot of times it doesn't. So in that case, you're going to have that same message across all platforms. Now, that's a quick and easy way to do that. Only reason it's not really recommended to do that is because if you have the same followers following you on all those different social media platforms, they're going to get bored because they're not going to see anything new. And so they may just decide, well, I'm going to only stick with Instagram. But what happens if you post something on Facebook and it's a different message, and then you've lost part of your audience? So what you want to do is try to keep that fresh. So you would post a different message on each social media. But now going back to this one, requirement for your broadcast social media script, if you choose to do that one, it doesn't have to be one, saying specifically where you're going to post it. But you could say this is a script that we wrote for social media. Then you're going to also include your other copywriting and art samples. There's a link there that says comps, and you're going to click that link and you'll see the examples there. Then you have your IMC recommendations. It says see page 17. So I'm going to open this page 17 real quick. Again, the links are provided for you as far as examples go. And for some reason, this link is taking a while. There we go. So what this is this is a common link that is your community care center plan. This example template, this whole paper here, is basically what you could make your entire paper look like. Now, granted, this example is 76 pages long, so that does not mean that you need to be 76 pages long, because that would be very difficult for me to grade it as well as for you to compile it. But you'll still get the general idea of how you would set everything up. So as you go through that example on those 76 pages, you get to see, oh, okay, well, this is the marketing strategies. This is how this works. Again, going back to the rubric, for example, your IMC recommendations on page 17. I'm going to go back up to page 17. You'll see on page 17 of this PDF file, it says overall IMC strategy. And it gives you some information about providing a mission and a vision statement for the brand. And then when you're looking also at your rubric, I'm sorry, the last final part of it is your client presentation, which comprises of your plan overview. Again, there's that link to the comps and descriptions of advertising deliverables and the mechanism for client feedback, which is going to, we're going to finish off with our client presentation, which is a PowerPoint presentation. So when you look at this rubric that is posted on every group discussion, on every single module, you'll see what we've been following and what consists of each of these milestones. You'll see that milestone 1 is your annotated bibliography and situational analysis. I've given every group feedback on all of this, so you should have been incorporating my feedback throughout every week, or go back and read it or get in touch with your teammates to see, hey, do I have everything I need to have? Then your milestone 2, it tells you, again, you've got your strategic objectives and big idea. Milestone 3, which is what we're in for week 6. The week 6-2 is your milestone 3, which is the rough draft of your portfolio. And as the instructions state, your portfolio should be a rough draft of all of the main elements. And if you see, there is a link there and it clicks and it takes you back up to what I already went over, of the advertising campaign portfolio. This milestone is not graded separately, but will contribute to the final grade of your project based on the extent to which your group incorporates my feedback. This feedback can be found in the comments function in the group discussion, unless otherwise indicated by me, your instructor. It should be consistent with the guidelines in the portfolio rubric. And then we move on for week 7. You're going to have your final draft of your portfolio. So when we get to week 7, your 7-1 milestone 4 says you will submit the completed advertising campaign portfolio. It should be polished, it should be a polished final version containing all of the main elements. Again, there's a link there that tells you, and it takes you right back up to the top of the rubric to make sure you're including all that information. And it should reflect the incorporation of all the feedback given throughout the development and milestone submissions. And this milestone will be graded according to the portfolio rubric. And then milestone 5, which is what we have in week 8, this is your final milestone 5, which is your completed client presentation. It says you will also share your presentation with your classmates in the discussion topic of 8-1, and it should contain all of the main elements of the final product. Presentation should adhere to the principles of effective presentation outlined in the presentation rubric, and it's graded separately using the presentation rubric. So basically what this means is when we get to week 7, you're going to submit, each of you will submit your compiled paper that we've been working on throughout the term. You're going to make sure that you include all those main elements that are listed under the main elements of final product on your rubric. You're going to just go down that bullet list, make sure that each of those segments are included on your paper. As long as you have everything there, you're going to be fine. Now, I will step back here and mention that even though we're working in groups, like I said earlier, we have some classmates that either don't participate or they have moved out of the classroom. So when you see that happening, while it is unfortunate, everybody could technically be working on this on their own. Doing the group environment actually helps to alleviate the bulk of the work. But unfortunately, if we do have situations where you have teammates that are not participating, you don't let your own grade suffer. Make sure that you're still including these weekly topics and including it in your final paper that you're going to submit in week 7. Now, when you submit this paper in week 7 with all of these components on it, you would actually be surprised to see that while you may have some classmates that are not participating, they may take that paper you've uploaded and submit it as their own. So there's 2 ways that goes. Technically, on a group of 3, hopefully 4 that are still participating in your group, you all should have very similar information. Even so, there are a lot of times where team members go to compile their final paper and maybe they'll miss the entire tactics page. Maybe they'll miss including their strategic objectives page or something like that. So don't rely on one person to do all the compiling for you. I know some of you guys are doing really great and you are doing all the compiling, but that's not your responsibility when it comes to your own individual paper. Everybody is individually responsible for making sure that all of the main elements of their final paper are included when you submit it to me for week 7. If I do see teammates submitting the same exact paper with the same errors, you're going to get marked off for that. The reason being is that even though you're working on this as a group project, you should be going through it and you should be you should be making sure that like all your citations for your sources are there. You should be making sure that your annotated bibliography, any feedback that I've given throughout the term is included, and your final references page is correctly formatted, things like that. But again, it's not a matter of where, oh, we've been working on this as a team and now everybody's going to reap the benefits of my individual hard work. It doesn't work that way. It just works that everybody's going to submit their paper. And while there will be similarities, if you do take the time, and hopefully you will, to make sure that you have all of the appropriate information, all of the main elements included, and you've gone through and make sure that you've cited everything properly, formatted your entire paper, Times New Roman, double space, indent every new paragraph 5 spaces. I've continued to give feedback throughout the term. We're at a point where we're midway through the term now, and I'm asking you to refer back to my previous comments because I understand, I know some students get frustrated once they finish the course and, because there is a lot thrown at you as far as following APA format. But what I want everyone to realize, when you go down to the very bottom of your portfolio rubric, you do have throughout each week when you're submitting your work, you do have writing mechanics, and the writing mechanics goes along with your proper formatting of all of your, your paper, your, making sure that it is formatted correctly. And so when we work on this, just like when we go with even though we have our normal discussion and our group discussion, our truly written paper that we have is only just a short paper, which is 1 to 2 pages. The difference between this course and other courses is that other courses, you would be required to write, anywhere from 10 to 20 page papers every single week. Because you wouldn't have that group environment, but you may have 1 or 2 discussion boards, or you may have a discussion board and a My Marketing Lab that you do through Pearson. And then you also have a very long paper that's due every single week. So the course designers have made this so that we have our normal group, we have our normal discussion, we have our group team discussion, and then we have a short paper that's due. Now, week 6, we don't have a short paper due because it's giving you the opportunity to actually work on compiling your paper, which is going to be due in week 7. So again, yes, while that you guys are working on your paper all throughout the term for the project, and you're going to have similar information because you are sharing that information, each of you is going to submit that in week 7. You're going to submit your own paper. You're not going to have one person submit it for you, but this is where your individual grading is going to come in, and this is where it's going to be on you to make sure that all the elements are there. If you happen to have a person in your team that has taken on that role, then that's great because you have somebody who has done a lot of the work, but don't assume because they've done the work that everything is going to be correct. So I just want to stress that, and I can't stress that enough, to make sure that you are looking at this rubric, because the rubric gives you your step-by-step instructions on exactly what's needed. Follow those bullet points, put all the information in that same order so that when I open up your paper and I go to grade it, I can look through it and see, okay, this is here, and I could go through and check off all the bullet points. And I know that you have followed the format and that you have presented everything that you need for your advertising campaign. When we get to the final week 8 for milestone 5 and your 8-2 final project for your client presentation, Yes, that needs to be done in PowerPoint. There are links here. And then there's another rubric also included that tells you how to create a presentation. It's a presentation rubric that tells you how to create a PowerPoint. Now, you can use Microsoft PowerPoint, which all of you should have, or you can also use Google Presentation. Regardless of which you use, when you're taking your week 7 paper and you're turning it into your PowerPoint presentation, on your slides themselves, make sure that your slides are very short bullet points. And then when you're following, if I go back to the main elements that are required, for example, you're going to have a home page, which basically is going to be your first slide. Now, for your annotated bibliography, I understand that there are 6 resources for the annotated bibliography. So what you could do here, normally I do not tell students to throw an entire annotated bibliography on a slide because there'd be no way for you to be able to read it. The text would be too small. If that ends up being the case, you can put that annotated bibliography on 2 or 3 slides, but just make sure you get that in there. Another thing that you could possibly do, and I will not mark off for, is if you have your annotated bibliography slide, what you could do is you could list the 6 sources that you needed to have for your annotated bibliography in alphabetical order. Put those on your slide, but then go down below your slide. You have a slide notes section. You can get to your slide notes section by either pulling up, putting your mouse at the very bottom of your slide, and you'll get a double arrow, and you can pull it up and you can see your slide notes section. So you can technically take your entire annotated bibliography, copy it, paste it into your slide notes, but then on your slide itself, just put your sources of information, or if you just want to title, just however you want to do that, it still needs to be included. So again, there's basically 3 ways you can do your annotated bibliography on a slide. You can either title the slide as annotated bibliography and then put all of your content in the slide notes, or you can take all of your contents and put it on one slide. It's going to be very tiny. I don't even know if you could get the text any smaller than 8 points, so that still may go beyond one slide. So you may still have to go into 2 or 3 slides. Or like I said, just paste your annotated bibliography, in that slide notes section at the bottom. But you're going to have each of these slides. So you're going to have you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 plus so you're going to have a good 11 slides plus your sources of information slide, which would be at the very end. Now, again, always refer to your rubric to make sure that you're including the appropriate number of slides that represent it. Because basically what you would do, just to give another idea on how this works in the real world, once you and your marketing team would be working on your advertising campaign, you're going to be writing that out like you would for me. And so when you present that to me in week 7, just look at it as you're presenting that to your company leaders, the directors, everybody that's in the company that needs to make this decision. So you're going to be presenting that to me. And as I look at the paper, I'll get in a very in-depth look at what's happening. Now, when we get to week 8 for the PowerPoint presentation, that's the one that's going to hopefully entice your client to go with your ad campaign. So that's why when you look at the slides, if you're standing in a room and you're giving a presentation, probably to your company leaders as well, but also to your client, you're going to have most likely a big board or a whiteboard or a screen at the front of the room. You'll be projecting your PowerPoint presentation to your client. On your slides, this is why you want to have very minimal text. You want to give a bullet overview of what's on each of these segments that go on your slides. So for example, when you start to go into your situational analysis and audience research, you're going to take the highlights of what's written on your paper, and you're going to put those as just short bullet points on your slide. But in your slide notes, copy and paste that segment from your paper into your notes. That's all you need to do. You're not having to rewrite anything. You're just incorporating what's in your written Word document and scaling it down and putting it on your PowerPoint presentation. Same thing for your strategic objectives page. You'll make a slide for that. Strategic objectives page is going to be your title, and you'll put some very short bullet points of what's on that strategic objectives page, and then go to your paper, copy all of that text, paste it in your slide notes at the bottom of your slide. And if it just so happens that your slides just run off of the slide notes area at the bottom, don't be too concerned with that, because my main thing is going to be make sure that you are following proper format on how to do a PowerPoint. I understand that a lot of you may not have done a PowerPoint presentation, so this is a great practice on getting your PowerPoint presentation created. Again, we do have a rubric that goes over that, and it gives you all of the information, shows you how to make PowerPoint slides, what a really bad PowerPoint presentation would look like, and then it also gives you another link for 10 PowerPoint presentation tips, which I just basically gave to you. Technically, for future reference, if you ever were, and hopefully you would be, working in a platform or company where you would be giving a presentation, when you get to that point, a good rule of thumb is to know that on your actual slides themselves, your presentation should be, or your font, I should say, should be a minimum of 24-point font. And that's because once you project your slide up on a screen, if your font is like 12-point and you got a ton of text, first of all, you're going to lose your audience, because nobody wants to read anything that's up on a screen. Your audience wants to see very short bullet points. You want them listening to you as you're talking. You don't want them staring up at the screen and reading their screen when you are the one giving the presentation, because you're the one that's selling this idea. So this is why on your slides, this is why you want to have very short points. And the slide notes, the purpose of the slide notes section on PowerPoint is for your own reference. It keeps you on track. So you may have very short bullet points, but in your notes, you would be the only one seeing those. So as you're giving your presentation, you just kind of like take a glance at your notes as you're talking about those bullet points that are up there on the screen, and your notes that are at the bottom help you to remember everything you're supposed to talk about. Now, going back to this as being, when the group activity, while you've been working on this as a group assignment, this final paper and this PowerPoint presentation in week 7 and 8 are individual submissions. And this is where, if you happen to be a creative person and you want to add some more, if you want to add audio or something to it, feel free to do it. It's not required. Honestly, the only thing that was required is what is listed on the rubric, and that's what I grade you on. But I do have students that go above and beyond, and they want to get there. The way I like to say and give a description of these group assignments is a lot of times you'll be working in a company where you may be working on a project as a team. But what ends up happening is that as you're working on it as a team, you are also individually going to be submitting your own proposal to the client. So while the client may see the same general idea and the information from 5 different people, for example, they're going to only choose one. And you want to be the one that the client says, hey, I like that person's presentation the best because it was very, very easy for me to understand. It seems like they covered all the topics. You look at the rubric instructions as your client demands and their requirements. And this is what they want you to create for them. And so hopefully that gives a better explanation on what is required when we get to week 7 and 8 for this course. Again, if it is a situation where you have team members that are not really posting or they're not really contributing, then unfortunately, just go ahead and make sure that your information is there, because at the end of the course, everybody is going to be graded individually. I know who's been participating. I know who has not been participating. And the ones that don't participate, or the group members that come in and just say, well, what do you guys want to do this week? And then they post that on Monday, and then you get to like Saturday or Sunday, and it's like, oh my gosh, nobody's posted anything. Well, this is where you need to pick this up, and you still need to do this work, because again, like I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, technically, yes, each of you could be doing this presentation on your own. Hopefully in the group environment, it has been dispersed and divided up so that it's not so hard. But unfortunately, things happen, and we lose people, and we have people that don't participate, and we can't do anything about that. So in those situations, I apologize on behalf of the ones that don't participate, but I don't want to see somebody not pass this course because of that. So please go ahead and make sure that at least you are submitting and you are compiling all of this information so that you can pass this course, because that's what's the most important. I don't want to ever see anybody not pass any of my courses. I do provide a lot of feedback. We do, and because we have these different discussions, if you guys are on track and you are talking about, sharing different information about, here's an ad I created and stuff, I'll comment roughly in the beginning or maybe in the middle just to see where you guys are going. I won't comment on every single post, because you guys are doing really well, and a lot of the groups are communicating very well, and it's exciting to see that. So I guess I know this is a long video, but it's something that I need to stress, because it's at a point in the term where I do see some students get frustrated because there is a lack of participation. But again, remember that each of you are responsible for submitting your own paper in week 7 and your PowerPoint presentation in week 8. And all of that information is what we've been compiling each week throughout the term. And for that reason, that's why you only have one discussion board post, and why you only have one very short paper that's due every single week, except for week 6. So hopefully this helps give a better explanation on what's going on with this particular course. I really appreciate you guys hanging in there. I know it is difficult, just as far as time management goes, but again, this is how it really is in the real world, and this is giving you a taste of how this happens and how you coordinate, and hopefully can coordinate. Or maybe you have clients that, or other employees that just don't show up, and you know what? You have to keep the project moving forward, and you have to still submit something. Otherwise, everybody's at risk of losing their job. So this is where, these are lessons you learn. And so hopefully you'll be able to take away from this course why the course designers created it this way, and why we approach it this way. So anyway, I am going to continue grading the work for the previous week. And if you have any questions, ask in the general questions area. But you guys are doing really well, and I really look forward to reading your participation. And I hope that this video, while long, has helped to kind of break down. And I just can't stress enough to please just read your rubrics and follow your rubrics, because that's what we all grade on. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all of your hard work. Bye-bye.